And now live from Mo's dark room, it's AWS Howdy Partner. Take it away, Mo.
It is. Thanks, Ghost Host. And also, we're not just live from my dark room. We're live in Austin, Texas, first of all. We're also live in Dublin, Ireland, and in London. We're distributed now, man. But it's great to be here, Howdy Partner audience. This is my 7th episode, I think 21st episode of Howdy Partner. Super excited to have SWRVE on here. This is also Eric's 2nd episode. Eric, do you want to introduce yourself again to the audience?
Yeah, so my name is Eric Vasquez. This is my 2nd time on Howdy Partner. I'm a partner solutions architect with AWS. Really glad to be here, and hopefully everyone can learn something new today.
Yeah, and then we have 2 new faces from SWRVE, our expert guests this week. Oshin, let's get started with you. Do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, you're on mute.
Done the basics, huh? My name's Oshin Hurley. I'm CTO of SWRVE, except when it comes to mute things, I've had difficulty with those. My responsibilities for SWRVE is production, operations, technology use, and all security, privacy, and all that good stuff.
Nice. And then Nick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Nick Peacock. I'm Regional Director for Customer Success, based out of London. My team and I manage kind of adoption, implementation, and strategy for SWRVE customers.
Very, very cool. Thank you two for joining. Eric, before we jump in, could you just tell everyone what Howdy Partner is, why they should be watching? I think you're muted too, Eric.
So in short, Howdy Partner is a Twitch episode. We try to spotlight, highlight some AWS partners that are building on top of the platform, doing some pretty cool things. I think the show itself isn't just for advanced AWS users. It's open to everyone. The whole point here is to give you the opportunity to see what some AWS partners are doing and then help you learn some AWS and their offerings also. If you can, definitely subscribe to the channel as we have more episodes coming up, and feel free to ask any questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. I want to throw that out there.
Oh yeah. So again, if you're a developer, an architect, follow along, participate in the chat. We're here basically learning all about how SWRVE can help automate and streamline your marketing workflows with targeted in-app messages, push notification campaigns, and really all the tools that you need to analyze all the data from those campaigns, right? Now, we usually like to set the stage for our partners, and we like to get started with a demo of sorts. But since Eric and I are kind of out of our comfort zone when it comes to MarTech, we just wanted Nick and Oshin to set the stage for their own demos, really. And I hear SWRVE has kind of an interesting history with respect to gaming, and since we're on Twitch, Nick, Oshin, why don't you just take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Mo. Yeah, absolutely. So SWRVE started about 10 years ago. The initial build was effectively to serve games users and games companies. That was the plan at the start. Started off with a games engine, believe it or not, and then decided that wasn't really going to swim very well at the time, and then went into games analytics. And once we got a little bit successful around that, we brought in some A/B testing, especially things like what we call resource A/B testing, which would be change your app experience, allow you to do feature flags, all that kind of good stuff that people do in apps, in games especially. And then as we got some more big customers coming on, we started looking at being able to message people, being able to do a bit of A/B testing with the messages. And so there was some incremental growth there. We got into push then as the kind of the wake-up call for games folks that may have gone a little stale, got bored with their game. This is to bring them back in there. And then we realized that, there's a bigger world above games. Games is huge. It's bigger than it ever was. But we also pushed out into various other kind of enterprise, I guess, situations, and had a more of a kind of a campaign level, marketing level kind of personality on our system. And that's led us down the roads of things like personalization, localization, geo-targeting, something that we call hyper targeting, which sounds a bit fun, and it's as fun as it sounds, which allows you to do very fine-grained picking depending on behaviors. And of course, we do a lot of kind of integration work off the back end, and that's something that we explore with Amazon actually quite a bit, with AWS quite a bit, which we could potentially talk about later. We do attribution, and soak up attribution messages to give a kind of a big picture of what's actually happening in your app, and allowing you to kind of control it. That's it.
Awesome. I first. Integration stuff, that to me is automatically something I want to dig into, but I think we'll dig into it. We'll dig into it during the demo. Nick, I think you have some slides that you want to kind of walk us through to kind of illustrate SWRVE a bit in more detail for the audience. Do you want to get those up? And Ghost Host, I think that's your cue to share the screen.
Testing.
All right.
Can you guys see?
Yes.
Slides? Oh, look at this.
I think we're good.
It works first time. So Oisin kind of took you through I think the couple of decades that SWRVE has spent in technology and kind of specifically our heritage around gaming. This is kind of a nicer visualization of it that kind of Oisin took you through. And this is really just Oisin, do you want to kind of give a bit of a summary of what this kind of architecture slide is showing?
Got to get my glasses on first. Okay, I've got to get close to the screen for this one. So when you get right down to the core of it, what SWRVE is a fairly highly scaled event gathering and processing engine, right? So we suck in about 20 billion events from, a few hundred apps of various sizes every day. And we effectively iterate through all those and react to the content. So we move kind of games players into different segments, or we gather the KPIs, key performance indicators that we call them, things like how many daily active users have you got, how much money is everybody spending on average, how many people are dropping off, that kind of stuff. So that's your basic analytics. And then we build a set of kind of more of a campaign marketing personality on top of that. And we allow you to do tests, right? Run a campaign for some people, not for others. See who reacts better. Maybe one will get you, people will last in your game a bit longer. Maybe what they'll do is they might spend a little bit more, So we're all familiar with nudges and hints and things like that games can give. We sort of set up the data behind that to sort of let you know what's potential, and then we give you the tools to make things go to whatever your goal is, whether it be people stay in the game longer, or people spend, or people just have more fun.
And so these event sources themselves, just a quick question here. When like in the graphic, we have mobile up there, we have web, mobile, I'm assuming Android and iOS.
Yeah, well, it's all totally API driven, as you might guess. We build SDKs, the little software development kits, for mobile platforms because we got some graphics involved there. And if you're a big games co, you've got a lot of designers, you've got a very important art associated with your IP. And it's the same for other big retail organizations and other brands. And so we have this kind of crisp, pixel perfect approach to delivering messages, and we get the SDK to do that under the covers. And what's more, behind the scenes, the SDK is a great place. This is a little bit technical, but it's a great place to do back pressure, right? So if you're trying to operate back pressure through the systems, which is when things start to overload a little bit, you can delay and you can pull events backwards towards where their source is. The SDK really helpful for that. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. So we like iOS, we like Android. Unity is a great platform for us. We do Amazon device messaging. But since it's an API, there's lots of flexibility there. We've rolled out some web stuff. You can now collect data and send data to the webs. We have a thing called OTT, which is not over the top, or it is kind of over the top, but not in a very specialized way. It's kind of set-top boxes and little TV streaming things. So your Fire TV is one of those. Your Apple TV is one of those. Your smart TV, your Samsung, your LG, they're both those, and your Roku box, right?
Gotcha.
So we deliver content and messages and interstitials, and we gather data about like what people are watching and maybe how long they're watching it and that sort of stuff. A la any kind of, e.g., Prime delivery and that sort of business, you know, Amazon Prime TV. Same goes for things like email and SMS, kind of more traditional channels that aren't quite as much fun, but still prevalent. So we can kind of pull in data from pretty much everywhere, and we're kind of bi-directional in the sense that we can connect it out the other end as well, so that you can have reactions and we can send messages to people as a result of their behaviors or whatever like that.
Yeah. Sounds like event driven. Oh man, I'm so excited about today's episode already.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Very cool. So yeah, let's
keep going.
Keep it going. Yeah.
Back to you, dude. Let's see what's next.
Now I can do a bit of talking. So this is just some of the brands we work with and have worked with over the years with SWRVE. We have our typical verticals kind of around media and entertainment, retail and e-marketplaces, telco, travel, hospitality, and financial services. And obviously, Oisin talked a lot about kind of our kind of gaming heritage. We've been in the game, so to speak, for the last couple of decades. So we are kind of fairly well known in that space. Then there's also a lot of kind of digital first brands. We're lucky enough to kind of work with the guys at the Movember Foundation as well. We've been working with those guys for a couple of years, along with a couple of partners. And so we get to work with a lot of digital first and interesting organizations. So I'm going to very, very quickly, rather than doing death by PowerPoint or by slideshow, I'm going to very, very quickly, very visually take you through some of the kind of the key architectural advantages that SWRVE has. And as Oisin said, a lot of this is powered by the stuff that Oisin and the team built almost 10 years ago now. And all of this kind of sits on AWS. It all sits on our event streaming, and it really couldn't exist with that kind of that core architecture, that core infrastructure. The first being is really kind of the extensible open data framework. And SWRVE really is built at the heart, like the beating heart of us is this real-time streaming engine, but we extend that to other solutions in the space. So as Oisin said, we have a bunch of APIs and SDKs that enable you to bring the real-time event data through as events and attributes into our data store. You can plug SWRVE with bidirectional APIs into CDPs or CMSs or different databases, whether that's your kind of inventory management system. CDP being cut.
Yeah. Go for it. You know what I was going to ask. I know what CMSs are, content management systems, but the other one I'm not so sure about.
CDP is the customer data platform. They're kind of the new age DMPs. They're purpose built to take in a lot of data and make sense of it. And Oisin, please tell me if I'm kind of talking incorrectly there, but that's how I kind of put it in my head.
You've just brought in another acronym though, DMP.
Oh,
can't explain one TLA with another TLA, man, without doing that TLA as well.
Yeah, that's a DMP.
That's true. Data management platform.
Gotcha.
Data management platform. Yeah, right.
If you ask me what the differences were, I'm not entirely sure I'd be able to tell you. There's probably some kind of technical infrastructural definition between the two, but I see the CDP as kind of the new kid on the block, a bit more agile with the accessibility and the scalability of the data.
It's just been able to manage large flows of data, basically. That's relevant to what you're doing, and actually tie it to your business, and tie it to the customer's relationship with your business, so you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. And just managing large amounts of data is fairly difficult in its own way, and trying to match. People's maybe have existing protocols within their business or existing business systems, and they've spent loads of money on that, so they're not going to throw that stuff out. So you got to try and connect everything together.
Right. All right.
You keep going. And then the final piece is obviously cloud solutions. They're the monoliths in the marketing industry. They kind of they spearheaded a lot of the innovation in the last kind of couple of decades around being able to kind of gather data together and then market and engage with the consumer bases. So we're obviously one of our kind of our main uses is being able to kind of connect to these cloud solutions. Number two is I think this slide is not updated, so Ocean's going to kill me. I think it's currently 20 billion events per day across the different apps we have on the platform. Updating of segmentation is insanely quick. So as the real-time data and the real-time events is coming through from the SWRVE SDKs into the SWRVE backend, we're able to switch the user profiles for particular individuals in between these different segments of different audiences incredibly quickly, which really kind of makes the data that you are collecting immediately actionable, which is kind of one of the core kind of proponents of the SWRVE system, as well as the sheer kind of scalability of the backend infrastructure. And I think this is probably a very good segue into why we use AWS.
Well, I mean, the SWRVE was born in the cloud. You know, we used AWS from the start because, you know, there's no way that a small startup can order 200 grand worth of machines and just stick them in a basement. It doesn't work like that anymore. It's not the 90s, dudes.
I mean,
so,
they could try. They could try, right?
You can try, but I mean, that's just, you know, good luck. You know, there's better things to do with that money. I suppose you'd want me to say give it to AWS, of course. But I mean, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you're ingesting large amounts of data. You need to have a level of scalability. Obviously, your own work needs to scale, but you need to be able to sit, you know, you need the infrastructure to scale with you. You need the elasticity. You also need sort of the level of reliability that AWS has been able to provide. I mean, you know, back at that time, even, you know, like S3 was as solid as a rock at that point in time, even that long ago. So you know, as the original architects of the system said, right, we have data and we have objects in S3. That's it. Let's not be super clever about all those other bits and bobs. And the cleverness kind of came in a little bit later. But yeah, AWS has been absolutely necessary to make the system grow, also to make the system shrink when we needed to shrink it. So the elasticity is really, really what we need. And that's you know, that's what AWS has provided, and it's allowed us to be super reliable as well. I mean, our uptime is like 99.997 or something like that. It's a non-business critical system, and I mean, I was chatting with Slack and our ops guys last week, and one was going, "Well, I haven't had a call like in my last 2 sessions. It's been like 2.5 weeks since I got a page." And I'm going, "That's great. Is everything still switched on?" Guys. And of course, as soon as they said that, they got a page like 45 minutes later. Typical. But yeah, no. So it's, you know, it's allowed us to worry about our own application problems, right? Rather than having to have like a deeper team that has to worry about hardware or worry about outages a lot more. So, you know, it's been a great advantage. Back to you, Nick.
Yeah. Thank you. And then the autonomous segmentation real-time triggering is really the crux of where all that data ends up flowing from the kind of the user digital platforms into the system. What you actually end up using it for. So being able to create and Asheen mentioned this earlier, being able to create these very, very, very kind of finely tuned, fine-grained target audiences with all that data leverage.
Gotcha.
And then being able to use all that in kind of a contextual basis as well. So depending on the location of the user, kind of their behaviors, external triggers, there's kind of a lot of we can do with certain APIs as well.
So when you say autonomous segmentation, does this happen like as these event sources are like, and users are producing events on these event sources essentially? Let's say I'm on my phone or my Fire TV and I come across like a Prime Video ad. How does the autonomous segmentation look like then?
So I'm probably not going to do this justice. I'm going to oversimplify it more for my own brain than anyone else's. But when the events are recorded on the device and flushed through to our server, essentially go through a process of flowing into kind of our segmentation engine, and all of that happens within about 200 milliseconds. I mean, obviously, given for network delays and those kind of things that happens. I mean, but the kind of the output of this is actually, even if it's a second, being able to kind of go from input of a user making a purchase on a mobile device or liking a channel, they can flow into, let's say they set their preferences to like I don't know, their favorite baseball team. For instance, they can flow in a segment into a segment that can kind of flag these guys as a fan of this team in an insanely short moment of time.
Yeah, there's a good one for it as well, and that comes from the kind of the data privacy angle of it as well. Everybody needs to be able to opt out of stuff they don't want to be part of anymore, right? So being able, using this kind of retard capability, we can have somebody push a button in an app saying, look, I'm sick of hearing about this profile, this thing, don't tell me anymore, this promotion or whatever, don't tell me anymore. And we can opt that person out like instantly through a feedback loop, so they'll never get anything again from within the lab from like 2 seconds later, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's not one of those kind of batch systems where you might still get messages until the next day kind of stuff, but it makes sure that, you know, we can react in a way that makes that the person on the device is expecting.
Very cool.
Yeah, exactly. And the premise of all of this is not to make the data you gather in like incredibly finely grained to kind of track and monitor users. It's to be able to use it to actually properly contextually message people. The typical kind of thing is to kind of batch and blast promotional campaigns. So if you look at my personal email inbox, which will kill anyone who likes inbox zero, I have roughly 60,000 unread emails. I'm not entirely sure what time span that covers, but I wish that people would message me more, but with far more kind of contextually relevant messaging for me, that they would take the data they do collect about me and actually use it to personalize offers and things for me.
Gotcha. Okay, man, I was just thinking about how crazy every time I learn a bit more about these like MarTech solutions and these MarTech platforms, I have this notion, I had this preconceived notion at least that like there was a team of developers just working on this, and it just makes so much sense that there would be like partner products that were just dedicated to like making these campaigns a lot easier to manage and keeping track of all that data. And so
just trying to do this yourself would take a good amount of time. Just a lot of work being taken out of your hands with this specific solution.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the tooling is great. See, everything, you know yourself, everything gets hard at scale, even if it's something straightforward, right? Once you've got a lot of stuff happening, you know, if you've got a 1 in a million chance of something going wrong and you've got 100 million users, that's 100 things going wrong every day, which is not much fun for one person to deal with. So you gotta, it gives a whole lot of possibilities for people to actually do things for communicating with their customers that isn't a pain in the backside for their customers, that isn't pushing or isn't kind of, hi, insert name here, percentage signs. You know, it is actually saying, hey, Mo, this is a situation you might be interested in because you did this. What do you reckon? And you can, you know, either go, that seems to be relevant, but it's not. So it's not annoying. And that's what the whole contextual business that Nick is talking about is. That there's enough data there to say, well, if we send him a message now, it's not going to annoy him, right? And it might actually help him. And so the more sophisticated you get, the better.
Yeah. So much preferred to me, at least when I'm going through some web experience, where like when it seems like the ad that's being sent to me or whatever the call to action is kind of knows what I'm interested in. I'd much rather it just like be tailored to me than it just be random.
My favorite analogy of the story I tell is about, and I don't know if I can kind of say the brand name. So I say a popular media streaming platform, one of the top ones. So I watch their content on my iPad, my laptop, my phone, my Xbox. I think at one point I even streamed via projector via a Fire Stick. So I watch all of it. I watched loads of content on all these different form factors. I found a new TV series. I started binge watching it. I was up at like 4 a.m. just trying to finish all these seasons, and there was like 7 of them. And I think probably at like 4:30 in the morning, I finally switched off. I came back the next day to watch them, to finally kind of get the last couple of seasons, and they'd removed it off of the service. I would have loved like a notification at the time to say like, hey, this won't be available in 48 hours. You should binge now. Like stay up, yeah, 48-hour binge. Just try and do all 5 seasons automatically. Yeah. And I didn't get a single message, right? It's that kind of thing where I wanted to be communicated with, but I wasn't at the time. So it would have been great to have kind of all the data that is collected used in a very kind of beneficial way for me. Let me binge more.
Right.
And I said that one of the fifth parts is really kind of having the creative part to be able to not be creative. So in about 5 minutes, I'm going to take you guys through the SWRVE dashboards and show you what some of these things look like. Unfortunately, I don't have a demo TV with me. I would love this one. This is about, I think, 64 inches or so. So I would love to have that one in my place. So, but unfortunately, I don't have a smart TV. But it's being able to and as Ashim and Mo were talking about, this entire system took I think a couple of centuries of dev years to actually build. And really what the outcome is for customers that we work with is really non-technical people are able to use it, like myself. I can build an in-app message, I can build a push without any knowledge of code, and be able to push it to my kind of end customers' devices in a contextual way. So, you really do have that flexibility. And it's something why I personally like working at SWRVE. It's being able to kind of positively impact and kind of message, and customers actually drive value, not just for the business itself, but for their consumer. Actually, touching this very briefly, but we have kind of 2 levels of A/B testing. The first one is being able to kind of A/B test messaging content. So this is stuff that's kind of deployed over the wire, so over the internet, to kind of different digital platforms, which is what we call in-app messaging. But also native A/B testing. So actually being able to instrument the SWRVE SDK, or even kind of the APIs from a backend, and be able to actually edit and change and test and optimize the native experience itself. Yep. So for here, it's just a kind of a simple layout and kind of button coloring. But actually these really small tweaks in user experience can actually have some really significant uplifts in conversion and engagement, and this is kind of one of the parts of heritage for us.
So I wanted to touch on that, right? So oftentimes, especially, I know the developer community is especially like guilty of this. They don't understand how important UX is, and on top of that, doing alpha beta testing, A/B testing on UX elements, right? So just changing the color of a button, making it from like go black versus blue, how that impacts whether or not folks actually buy something, or how folks click on the screen. Very vital part of like designing your applications and building the things that you want people to use. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's massively important. I mean, again, I have another nudge. I'm full of these stories. So we work with a gaming team, and they came to us and said our day one retention is just not what we thought it was going to be. So at the time, this was before my time, so probably kind of 6 or 7 years ago now. They built this beautiful onboarding flow for their mobile game. It's just a strategy game, kind of similar to kind of town building battle games that you typically get. And this entire thing kind of took you through a story. It was absolutely beautiful, but it took you about 8 minutes to get through it, which is a long time in gaming. Try and get anyone to do anything for 8 minutes is a bit of a task. And so they applied an A/B test that just was almost like a point and click, got you through in about 90 seconds. And the conversion between the kind of the beautiful onboarding and just the very basic point click, show me how to build, show me how to battle. I mean, it was, I don't remember the stats off the top of my head, but it was probably
astronomical.
Yeah, it was huge. And it was, And it kind of taught that story kind of just taught me that you should always kind of go through whenever you're building anything. Always go through the assumption that you're going to have to test it. Don't polish it to the nth degree, because you're polishing it for you. You need to polish it for your end customers. The only way to do that is to test. So yeah, but it's a critical thing to kind of be left with is always A/B tests. Everything, nice. Every little thing.
So Nick, we're gonna pause there. Eric, it's been around 30 minutes. Do you want to reintroduce the show to everyone?
Sure. So for those of you joining today, we have SWRVE on the show. Howdy Partner is a show to highlight specific AWS partners. We're trying to show everyone some cool things that they're building. In addition to that, it doesn't matter your level of expertise on the cloud. This is a show for everybody to join and hopefully learn something new. If you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. We're going to be going through a live demo here shortly.
Perfect. Nice.
Yeah, I promise you won't hear my voice talking about slides for a little while. Then it's me with a demo. This is 5 of 8, and I think this is actually maybe where I'll hand over to you. So there's the propensity scoring models.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to pick this one up?
Oh yeah, everybody loves a bit of AI action, except it's machine learning, obviously. So again, this is all about trying to suss out patterns in data. We've got a lot of data coming in. We've got customers who kind of want to know certain things, but they don't know how to express it. And some of these things are actually quite complicated. So we've got a couple of these machine learning models that we built in that we did a bit, we spent actually a good bit of time with SageMaker doing a bit of training for some of these. And then we moved it off SageMaker, and it's kind of built in a stream-like analysis rather than in a big chunk, but we did the training on SageMaker, which is very useful. These effectively, these propensity, and I don't really like that word, but propensity to convert, propensity to churn, basically give people a kind of a feeling about, you know what, I think that this crowd here are going to stop using your app, right? So do you want to maybe give them a ping, reconnect? Hey, do you want a discount voucher? Something like that, something to keep them going, maybe power-ups. Could be anything at all, but it's just to kind of, ring the doorbell again. So we're able to maintain these kind of segments of these audiences, which go, right, well, these people have scored 10 out of 100. So there's a chance that they're going to be not using your app because their interest has waned, right? Yeah. And then you can just you just set up a campaign, a win back campaign, as we might call it, to those people, and you just let it go, and you never need to touch it again. Like, you just look at the results coming back in and go, all right, we're getting some people converting back in. So, and then the propensity to convert is, again, to convert is just, it can mean anything, right? It means that you've reached a marketing goal. Marketing goal has been achieved. They've converted, right? So this is a customized version of the churn one, much more complex in the way that it works, in terms of the machine model behind it. And what it does is it looks at it analyzes the activity for your particular app, in your particular vertical or target space, and says, there's a certain amount of these people, I think there is a good chance they would be open to converting on this basic event. And then you can sort of go like, it's
fascinating, because I feel like oftentimes when I'm going through signing up for new apps or maybe experimenting with a new brand to play around with, I guess I'm outing myself here. I will try to make the propensity to convert score a little higher, and I'll hold off on converting so that I'll get like a 20% off, or one of the promotional nudges, essentially. So it's really cool to be able to see this behind the scenes and to see, and I can't even imagine the work that went into developing the AI ML models, essentially to figure out what those scores were. Yeah.
Well, one of the really interesting things is, I mean, the ML stuff is really interesting. It's superpowered statistics, but the part of kind of the data cleansing at the start, and then what my data team call the hyperparameter tuning, which is it's that kind of tuning and discovery where you're going to go, okay, well, what influence is this within the flow of events? What can affect it, and at what level? And it's all that poking around. Like the propensity to churn has only maybe about 2 or 3 hyperparameters. The convert has a lot more. So, or features, I think maybe is what they might call them as well. Sometimes I'm no expert in the details, but I do like having it explained to me.
Awesome.
All righty.
Not spend much on this one. So plugging into the marketing clouds, right? So being able to build those linear journeys, bring in the again acronyms, DMP and CDP sides, and trying to orchestrate those things in a single point. This is kind of some of our enterprise credentials. As Oisin said, the reliability is insane. Scalability is heavily reliant on the guys at AWS. Security, extensibility, portability, flexibility, and on all the ilities. They kind of make us what we are.
Yeah.
It's all the ilities.
You need all the ilities for enterprise, am I right?
Exactly, and what that all comes with is and this is actually my favorite acronym, is the WYSIWYG. Is the what you see is what you get. So it's kind of what you. Yeah, it's my favorite acronym.
That's a new one.
I've never heard that one before.
Dude, that's been around since the 90s.
Yeah, definitely.
Is what you get. WYSIWYG.
What you see is what you get. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, there you go.
And the whole premise is it really is, it's simple and intuitive to use. Kind of all the complexity is behind the scenes, and not everyone can be an expert like Oisin is on the kind of the technical capabilities of all these different systems kind of intermingling. I am not overly technical myself, but I'm able to use SWRVE with kind of very little knowledge of generating email templates or generating kind of push codes. I don't need to do any of that. And so kind of making it easy for a less technical person, a marketer or a producer or products person, to be able to generate all these kind of very clever outputs to their consumers is a really big thing.
Yeah, I guess tidbit of knowledge from the chat here. Rosenberger says the Apple Mac was built on the premise of what you see is what you get.
Yep, that's right. Came out from Xerox PARC.
Very cool.
So and this is really the output, right? So it's a simple message, and it's cool, right? It's got a GIF. There's a couple of buttons in here, but this ends up being what you see as a consumer. But really, there should be, and there is a lot that goes on behind there to actually get that to you at the right time, with the right message, and actually it should be relevant to you guys as well.
This, by the way, is a very relevant example right now, in particular, because recently with Sling, the NBA playoffs are going on right now, and so I feel like I just got the same message. Join the madness-ish. It was like it was something NBA related, but it was like get Sling Blue from Sling, and I totally converted on that. So shout out to the SWRVE messaging there.
Awesome.
Now let me switch over to the SWRVE dashboard. Can you guys see my screen okay still?
Yep, looks good.
Cool, smashing. So this is kind of where my dulcet tones will hopefully kind of get broken up by the people jumping in. So Mo, Eric, Oisin, please feel free to jump in. As much as I love my own voice, I don't love it that much. So with people with questions or anything, feel free just to jump in. So this is the kind of the overview, and so this is the demo dashboard. So some of the data can be a little bit wonky. This is just populated by some kind of clever bots on our back end, just to kind of have some interesting data to show you guys.
Does everyone, by the way, have access to the demo dashboard? Is that like publicly accessible, and is it the same demo, or is this kind of like a free tier type situation?
No, this is not a Yeah, this is not a free tier, unfortunately. We don't have a free tier sign up, swipe your credit card thing. You gotta call us, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Cool.
I'll send us an email. Anything digital. Or WhatsApp me. So the premise of all the stuff we've been talking about so far is that you end up having a lot of data, right? So say you have a million active customers a month. What do you do with that data? How do you segment it? How do you analyze it? How do you make that data actionable? And so SWRVE has a number of kind of pre-canned reports and kind of aggregations and reviews that enable a marketer or a product team or a development team to kind of really understand what they're seeing. So in the last 24 hours or over the last 90 days, you're seeing 31 new users, 319 what we call evaluating users, 3,179 engaged users. So really kind of where you want most of your user base is to be at this top rung, right? So they're either new, they're either evaluating the apps, they've been active, or they're engaged. The worst part is you don't want to be at the bottom. You don't want them to have bounced, so they've come into the app once and then jumped away. So that is a non-valuable user to you as an app developer. They're lapsing. They've used the app multiple times, but just haven't used it in the last week to 3 months. That's a big group of people that while you kind of potentially still have access to send them an email or an SMS or a push, you really have no means of communicating them within the solution itself. You can't message them within the app. There's no way engaging them on the website. So you have to use these kind of marketing channels to bring them back in. And then you have disappearing, right? So the guys haven't used it in 3 months. So maybe that's not so bad as a stat for a travel company, for an airline. But for a mobile game, that's death, right? If they've not used the app in the last kind of 3 months, you probably won't see them again. I'm sure there's a stat out there, or I'm sure we have one on our kind of benchmark dashboard internally that would show this number is probably very, very small for returning.
Right.
The idea is being able to kind of be able to, as you're active, engage with certain customers through in-app messaging, through a different kind of in-app messaging format that we call conversations, and through things like push messaging as well.
It's just that easy. You just say like, just an in-app message.
We can go and do one. Yeah, we can click here, and it'll just go and start generating in that message.
Very cool.
So
Nice.
I have one prepared just because I'm not an artist, so I had someone help me with the pictures. It's been a while, and Paint doesn't exist anymore. If it had been Paint, then I could definitely have made one.
Is that a Microsoft Paint reference?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Clear. Thought you said you weren't technical, man.
You have Sketch on your computer. I don't believe that you're not.
Yeah.
No, I have no license. All the tools, no idea. It's there.
It's there. I see it. Okay.
I have Xcode here as well, but I have no idea how to develop in Swift or Objective-C.
Yeah.
So you have to name your campaign, right? I have not written a description, but you absolutely should. You should have an idea. And so what I tell every user that I've ever worked with, every customer, is always use a sensible naming convention. And this is kind of predominantly kind of focused at marketers, but even as a developer, whenever you're developing code, you want to kind of categorize it in a way that makes sense, right? So if you got hit by a bus tomorrow and someone else had to look at your code, is it completely unreadable? Hopefully not. Hopefully you've got notes in there, you've got descriptions of methods, so that the premise stays for marketing campaigns as well. This is a demo campaign for Twitch streaming. Be kind to the person that follows up after you. So we're going to create just a simple kind of 2-button portrait message. And the premise of this is you can, depending on the orientation of your app, you can change around. So whether it's a landscape app and it's gaming, or whether it's portrait, or whether it's both. Out the SWRVE SDK deploys that content to that device and enables switching very, very quickly. So it's not like it's an HTML kind of packet where it starts trying to load on the device and maybe you have network issues or I don't know, the images are inaccessible. So it just kind of ends up kind of loading slowly and the experience is kind of slightly inoptimal for the user. All of this stuff is kind of based on imagery. So once it's cached onto the device, it's available immediately onto the device. It's available if the user's online or offline, it will trigger regardless. So this is the concept part. So let me go and just switch this so you guys can see it. So I picked a portrait template with just a background and just 2 simple buttons. So here I've just dragged and dropped this very nicely pre-built message that is looking to promote free cinema tickets. So consider this a loyalty app. So all of the content is just within this one single background image. And then what I have is actually just 2 transparent buttons that I end up actually just overlaying on this just to ensure that it's almost like a hotspot. So these buttons could be completely separate images. You could have different size images. You're really in control of kind of how you kind of bring all these components together. But I like the very simple kind of put everything as a background and use hotspots. So there could be a little cross button up here to dismiss the image, but I've gone for kind of very binary, click to remind me about free cinema tickets or just close the message. It's super inobtrusive. When you click the button, you have different options, right? So you might want to dismiss the image, like the close button. You might want to deep link a user. So in here, I have a very simple kind of deep linking infrastructure where I'm just going to take them to the remind me preferences page. So all of this is, and something as a developer and as a publisher of an app, thinking about things like deep linking infrastructure is really important for you. It's not something that's totally is. It's not something that SWRVE manages personally. This is something that you guys do on your side. But what happens if I wanted to dynamically link someone from a push message to their favorite team? You'd have to be able to kind of insert these kind of custom properties to be able to personalize that deep link. So here it's just kind of a simple demo one. So it's not going to take me anywhere, right? This is just a dummy deep link. Or you could cross install, right? So there could be a bunch of other kind of test examples I have under my sample account. So there's probably got thousands of test apps here. But the premise is if you have more than one app instance, so you have a couple of games or you have, I don't know, a streaming app and a news app, you might want to kind of cross promote the user bases with the 2 different services. So being able to do that is super easy within the dashboard.
Very cool.
What I like, and that we talked about earlier, is A/B testing. Always A/B test everything. Don't just test the app, test all the marketing campaigns as well. So being able to insert, maybe this is just the remind me button is at the bottom rather than the top. Maybe instead of the close button being a button, maybe it's just a small kind of corner at the top right. So start kind of playing around with what the kind of the most optimal experience is for your customer. So being able to A/B test is super important as well.
So question for you, how automated does this get? And can I maybe with SWRVE like use the real-time data that we get from an alpha beta test to kind of influence the campaign as it's going? So like, for example, if the B variant is working better than the A variant, will SWRVE automatically just have the B variant be the one that's being used all the time, or am I kind of getting too deep with the marketing stuff?
Good question. So with the native A/B testing, we use this Bayesian algorithm that enables, and again, I'm going to absolutely butcher the description of what this is, but essentially it's a deterministic calculation of which variant is likely to beat the other variants of the control. And it depends on the rate with which you've set. So all this is kind of configurable when you start building up these native tests. So maybe the outcome of that test is for a consumer to make a purchase. So the event, but maybe it's their first purchase, so it would be a conversion test. Or maybe it's going to be a streaming platforms. So actually you want them to view content. So it's going to be an engagement end goal, because you want them to kind of reinforce the repetitive behavior. And with all these tests, it really the automation is always there, but the relevance of that test it can vary depending on the size of the audience. I think there's I'd say the rule of thumb is about 1,000 users per variant to kind of give you some level of statistical significance in there. And then depending on which one wins, you can deploy that variance to all users.
Gotcha.
So there is kind of a lot of automation in there, and it's something that you should always be looking at, right? And constantly testing, and then applying, and then testing again. Now we can go to preview and test, and I think this is where I'm going to cross my fingers to the demo fairies. Can you see my screen, my phone screen as well?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So when you schedule an internet message, what you're actually doing is this isn't like a web pop-up where you're kind of going through your experience, kind of let's say reading a news article, and you just get a random pop-up, right? It's kind of like untimely and it's intrusive. With the SWRVE system, what you're actually going to be doing, and let me just the targeting side, is actually going to be defining when this appears. So are you going to trigger it when the user launches the app? Are you going to trigger it when an event is triggered? So I've just got this on a button click because my sample app is very, very basic. Or do you want to do it on a condition of a button click? So where let's say the event origin, if I can spell correctly, is from an iOS device, let's say, or from an Android device. And all of this is kind of devised when you implement the SWRVE SDK. So the button click is kind of the high level event infrastructure. And then all of this is the payload, the attribute to that event. So think of it like a video play would be the event. And then the title, the genre, the actors, actresses, the play length, the star rating, they're all attributes or payloads to that they're all that part, that granular information about actually what video was played. There's probably some kind of IDs in there as well. Yeah.
It's kind of similar. We talk about a similar architectural practice. I talk about it often, event-driven architecture, and we'll probably talk later, maybe, about being able to export this data into AWS. So I don't want to rush you through the demo. But yeah, I have some things to bring up later as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so this takes me really smoothly onto targeting, which is the thing I find most interesting about SWRVE. So you may want to batch and blast this campaign, right? So all users, you may want to qualify for this campaign, whether it's a push campaign, an in-app campaign, or some other. You may want to target all users, right? You may want to pull in this audience from a third party. So SWRVE has a unique integration and partnership with the Facebook Audience Network. So when a user taps on an ad, or either whether it's an install ad or a retarget ad, you can bring them in and customize the first-time user experience of that user based on the ad they came through, which is kind of a massive way to kind of optimize the onboarding flow. Or one of my personal favorites is being able to link a push notification to an internet message. So rather than having to deep link them from a push message into a pre-built page, you can use SWRVE to kind of interject that page over the line, right, over the wire, which means you don't need to kind of always need to build these hard-coded pages for kind of offers and kind of tooltips and incremental updates and information to users. You can link these kind of two channels together to kind of bring this kind of seamless experience all together into the app.
Very cool.
Then my personal favorite is the filters. So I could spend probably hours, and I'm definitely sure I have bored some people at some time talking about audience targeting. But this is really where the crux of all of your intention and enthusiasm for your customers should come through. unless it is very important, you should never batch and blast. Don't send one message to all users unless it's pertinent to them all. Start testing. And so all of that event data, all of that kind of segmentation data, all the profile data that you're going to send from the device itself, or from the smart TV, or from the web, or from your backend CRM systems, or an inventory system, is all going to flow through and be accessible. So in the properties side, you might have that you want to target them based on the balance. And the balance is, let's say, as a number is greater than $1,000, let's say. You also want to have, and they match a filter of they've not shared, but they're engaged. And these are a bunch of all kind of pre-built segments that kind of any user can make. And you can start kind of stacking these up to generate audiences. And these are kind of, these profile filters are all around these binary overwritten bits of information. So if I change my email address, then I'll have the latest email address here. If I change my address, if I change my favorite sports team, if I change my device, for instance, you may want to target just where it contains an iPhone, or just a Samsung device. You may only want to target these users. So you can really start to stack these up, and then they do ands and ors. You can start grouping them as well. So you can add a secondary filter.
Yeah, really going back to what we were talking about originally, really customizing the experience of the call to action, essentially, that you're trying to make the user do. Yeah, very cool.
And this is kind of where kind of when you're trying to message users and engage with your players as a gaming studio, or your consumers or your customers, you really have to think about segmentation and grouping users together that have similar interests. Or you let automation take over, right? You let AI and ML algorithms like propensity to convert or propensity to churn completely overtake this, right? And completely autonomize the targeting. So remove kind of all bias. I think that people who match my filter and have a greater balance and are on a Samsung device should get this message. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this actually is a parity definition for actually just people that I think would convert and buy my next thing, or do that next marketing KPI. So you could just replace this entire thing with a propensity score potentially. So it really is kind of super flexible.
Very cool.
Here's where we get, and here's kind of where we get to the fun pieces. So this is when you can start doing behavioral filtering. So kind of as we talked about, the kind of the main data source that are coming through from the SDK and the APIs is event data. So whenever a user views a page, clicks a button, views a video, plays a game, builds a building, upgrades a fortress, whatever those kind of actions are, you're going to send that data through to SWRVE, and all of that is going to be accessible to you in here. So let's say level completed. I want to target anyone who has completed at least 5 levels in the last 30 days, or I want to, let's say they completed one level in the last day. So I want to target people who have not, right?
Yeah.
These different things, right? So there's lots of different operators you can have depending on the format of the data that's coming in. So this is level that could be between 1 and 300,000 if you're playing Candy Crush. So a lot of this is being able to make all of the targeting more contextual to users based on the recency with which they've done those things. And actually, I think
No, go ahead. I was going to say, this is where I thrive, is that the user trying to figure out, like, if I add enough things to my cart, will they send me a 10% off coupon? Anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, there's a slide from a different Amazon team, the game tech team. So I have to give a shout out to those guys. And it was one slide that kind of perfectly summarized in my mind the validity of data. And I wish I'd copied it into the presentation or had it to hand. But essentially, what it talks about is the recency of data. As you get a number of minutes, hours, days away from that action actually happening, it becomes actually less and less useful to you. So as you have that person go to the or add a item to their cart, like you, and they don't make a purchase, you want to be able to react in that moment, in that time when it's relevant to the user. You don't want to have to wait 3 days and then get a 20% offer. Well, maybe some people do. Maybe they want to game the system and try and get that 20, 30% offer. Definitely, I think I'm probably guilty of that as well. But you want to try and make these things relevant, right? And offers can be a good way to get people to convert. I know I convert pretty heavily on delivery things when there's no delivery fees, or if they're doing items. I thrive on those things, right?
Yeah. It's very product or service like specific, right? Like oftentimes with impulse, like if it's very obviously an impulse purchase, then it's probably something that you're going to want to send like oh, you left things in your cart, maybe like 5 minutes after they've left the app. But yeah, totally see how this makes sense though, and so glad that like SWRVE makes this easy to do, and that I don't have to just write a bunch of code to do all of this. That would be absolutely
Yeah, absolutely. And really what this... Go on, Eric. Go on.
I was actually a little curious about this. So would you say maybe CloudFront has any space here? Maybe just casting some of these filters. That way you don't have to do it manually at times. Or, just make stuff easier. Would you say that's something that SWRVE is using at all?
Yeah, okay, so I could answer some of this tech with CloudFront. All of our stuff, all of the assets that get uploaded that are going to be like pictures of your phone and stuff like that, that is all CloudFront. We are, pretty heavy users of CloudFront. For these kind of, we call these kind of things that Nick is having a great time creating. We call them filters internally. We store them in an RDS database. And you can reuse the filters and things like that.
Perfect.
Yeah, you don't have to do that every single time. You can rebuild those segments and start reusing them.
Yep.
And so something I wanted to talk about on the last piece is just being able to add conditions. So what we talked about, there's the event level, and then there's the kind of the attribute and payload load level. So before we were just targeting people that had completed at any level within like at least 3 times in the last day. However, you may want to target them based on the completion of a specific level. So maybe you have built level 10 to be very, very difficult, right? So you want to know everyone that has tried to get past level 10. So maybe they actually want to go to level failed. So they've failed level 10 at least 5 times, let's say in the last week, and they're stuck, right? So we're going to apply this, and then they haven't completed level 6.
Very cool.
Right.
Very cool. I think we just had an influx of people join. So Eric, do you want to reintroduce the show? And
So for everyone joining, welcome to Howdy Partner. It's a show meant to highlight some AWS partners that are doing some cool things. The show is meant for people of various experience. You don't need to be an expert, or you could be a novice or just starting your career out. Hopefully you can learn something, so please subscribe. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We're paying pretty close attention to it. We have Nick and Austin today from SWRVE. We're going to be we're actually doing a pretty cool demo right now. So hopefully you guys enjoy.
So Nick, what is going on here for everyone that's just joining? Just catch them up really quickly.
So we're building an audience for a campaign as a way to show you guys how to leverage that data and event-driven information that comes through from different digital platforms. So right now we're building an audience based on behavioral filters. And this is where you can start leveraging kind of recency and frequency of kind of really granular behavioral actions to be able to kind of surface really kind of contextual and relevant information to users. So right here we have a behavior where I want to target everyone who has failed level 5. So I've got level 10 in here. So let's go and edit it, and actually I want to say level 11. So they have failed level 10 at least 5 times in the last 7 days. They're stuck, and they haven't completed level 11. So maybe at this point we want to be surfacing them with a tooltip of how to beat that level, or maybe we want to surface a purchase option. So buy a power up, buy I don't know, a better weapon, whatever that might be, buy a candy blaster, or this could be applied to kind of anything, right? This could be versely that you added something to the cart, but you haven't made a purchase. So you want to be kind of retargeting these people based on those things, and you can kind of do them binary, right? So they have completed level 10 but not completed level 11. There's a binary kind of non-recency based way of targeting. But we were talking just before the reintro about the recency and usefulness of data, and how that kind of after the action occurs, how useful that information is, kind of after minutes, hours, and days. And right. the further away that you get from that kind of point of impact, so failing level 10 for the 5th time, it becomes much less relevant. So and again, gaming is a great example. If I've failed level 10 5 times in the last week, and I haven't completed number 11, and I also haven't been active for say a week, I might have churned. A week is too long to message me and try and help me pass level 10 and into level 11. So using this and kind of using that real-time segmentation is really, really, really critical. Just be able to kind of message consumers just in exactly the right time and in the right way with the right message.
Very cool.
Maybe testing, also very important. So once we have all of this, you kind of have your pool of users. I'm going to hit refresh estimate. We have a way of kind of estimating the audience size. This is going to say 0. I'll be very surprised if it said anything other than 0, as we have a bunch of demo data in here. It's just general kind of bot data. I would be insanely surprised if anyone of the bots actually matched any of this, and as you can see, it says 0. But it'll give you an estimate of the size. So maybe as a marketer, you've come up with an idea for some criteria you want to target users on, and maybe only shows 1%. So maybe that's too small, or maybe it says 100% and that's too large. Right. So this is just kind of a rough kind of like finger in the air. Does that feel right at the audience size?
Very cool.
And the most important thing, in fact, I completely forgot this. The most important thing across anything you do is to always have a goal, is to always have a reason for doing this.
That call to action.
So always a call to action, and this is not just a call to action for the user seeing the message. This is a goal of your business. So with this completely made up scenario, what do we want to try and get a user to do? Do we want them to complete the level? That's what we want them to do, right? We want them to complete the level. We may want them to make a purchase of an in-game currency, gold, gems, axes, subscriptions to streaming services, whatever that end goal may be of this campaign. It's so super important to be able to kind of leverage and base the effectiveness and be able to measure things like conversion. So did variant A of my campaign perform better? Did it get higher click-through, but not a higher conversion rate to variant B or variant C? So all of this kind of goes towards, is this the right target group? If you have a target group and they don't convert, was the message even valuable for that user? And you should make the assertion, right, that if it was valuable, you'll have a high conversion rate. So this is something that we really try and help customers understand. Is everything you do should be valuable to your end user. That doesn't mean it doesn't need to be valuable to you as a business. And there's always this equilibrium that you have to strike between what is valuable to you as a business and what's valuable to you as your customers. And typically, if you make your customers happy, you probably won't go wrong, right? I think I think there's probably a couple of massive companies, Apple, Amazon being two examples, that focus maniacally on customer satisfaction and quality of service, and they're both billion-trillion-dollar companies. So they've done a right out of being kind of very, very goal orientated and very experience orientated. So this is where now I'm going to wish the demo gods are kind to me. I'm going to show you guys what this looks like. So here you go. So we even have validation on this. So what is this campaign going to be? This one is, click. So I trigger this when I click a button. And then something that SWRVE has is the ability to, so this is just a demo dashboard, but this could be a production dashboard. I could be a true kind of CRM exec, and I could be creating this campaign, but I want to see what it looks like. Just in kind of the email world where you have seed lists or you send a test message. With this as an in-app message, I want to be able to see what this looks like and be able to test this experience for kind of a true user. So I've added my device. So my iPhone is my QA device. So I'm hoping that so this should be logging for me now. So when I open the app, which you should be able to see here, it's obviously a very complicated app. It's just got button 1, button 2. And then when I press the button, there you go, immediately.
Very
and you
cool.
can see here in the QA logging here, you can see that the campaign was triggered. It's the campaign ID, and if I click find here, you can see it's our AWS Howdy demo campaign. So this is what Oshin was talking about before, but where this campaign was downloaded onto the device from our content server. So that means it's all this imagery that you can see here, these buttons and such have all been downloaded and cached on the device. So I just want to spend a couple minutes on this page just because I find it fascinating.
Please, yeah.
What you're seeing here is essentially a real stream log of everything going on within the app to do with SWRVE. So if I scroll down, this is just a few sessions that I had earlier today, prepping for today. So you can see here that I sent myself a push message. So you can see here you have a push sent event. In the same second, this was also then delivered onto my device. You can see.
Can we look at the raw? Yeah, I want to see what the raw event kind of looks like.
Yeah, happy JSON time.
Oh yeah,
it's all in JSON. So this is a user update. So this is updating the user profile. So you can see here that I'm based in London. The SDK version is not the latest version of our SDK. That's my bad. I'm not using our 7.0 or 7.1 SDK. You can see I have an iPhone 10. Don't be misled by Apple's confusing model numbers. You can see my device language. I have it in English. And this goes around things like localization. So if you want to try and localize campaigns for users, then we're going to use their device language. So
you brought up the SDK, so I have to ask. I noticed if you're in the chat and you do a /docs or even a exclamation mark GitHub, the SDK seems to be. So is it open source?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
cool.
Okay. So let me just from with my CTO open source hat on. It's source available, and absolutely you'll see issues have been posted against it, and we take patches, etc. But it's not like a contributor license agreement kind of thing. So by all means, people can go fork it and mess with it if they find problems. We're happy to look at PRs. We absolutely will review PRs. Do it on the SDK team. Do it on a regular basis. It's always great to get input from people who are actually dealing with it.
Very cool. And then going back to the logs, it's interesting. So is there any way that maybe like folks can use these events downstream. This is kind of when I wanted to bring in the whole conversation on EventBridge here. What one of our AWS services, EventBridge, allows folks to like take events from applications like this, kind of use them downstream in a whole host of other use cases. How can SWRVE customers kind of take the events that you have and use them in AWS for other things?
Like go for that one, Nick.
I was about to hand that red carpet that one straight over to you. I guess I can intro it and then hand it over to you. So SWRVE's ethos is that the data that we collect is customers' data, right? It's our customers' data. It's not ours. We want to give it back to you. We want to make it accessible to you. So everything that SWRVE collects is exportable, either via API in aggregated ways, via kind of an aggregated user database that you can get either kind of as a direct CSV download from the dashboard or pull from an API. We have a bunch of kind of aggregated KPI and analytics feeds, again, accessible via API. And then we have our event stream, which I'm going to very swiftly hand over to Oisin to talk about.
Yeah. So if we deal with a customer that's really savvy around its kind of business intelligence systems and does a lot of data analysis internally, and large games organizations and logistical organizations like airlines are really hot for that kind of stuff because it's life or death, right? They need to monetize from the app. Sorry, I use the monetize word. I don't like it myself, but they want to get moolah out of the app. So, right. So what we do for those guys is we effectively give them a kind of a slightly delayed fire hose, where we set them up with an internal connection, which is really straightforward. We just say to them, put these, make yourself an AWS bucket, put these permissions on it, and we will just wedge that raw data right into that bucket in this format for you, and you can do whatever you like with it at that point in time, right? So you get these chunks of, gzipped, it depends whether their bucket's encrypted or not, but gzip data, which is big JSON lumps, and then they with a given format, which they can then analyze. Now, as you were speaking about event delivery, some people love this kind of stuff. Some people don't need it, right? But AWS provides kind of the new, as you know yourself, the new, more interesting, higher level kind of market capabilities around being able to say, well, just join up, connect to my EventBridge. We'll publish events to that. We have seen other companies go, well, all we need to do here is you set up a Lambda and send these events directly to us. And then there's the, things like AppFlow, which I don't know quite as much about just yet, which again seems to be a kind of a level up a little bit more. So, I mean, that's all really interesting kind of stuff. And I definitely see us taking a strong interest in participating with those kind of capabilities as they arrive. That's always in my mind. We potentially could be doing similar things for more KPI-oriented, process ground-up events. Internally within the system ourselves, we have a Kinesis bus that connects our kind of high-speed roll your own core infrastructure to a set of like a pluggable integration platform, queue-based integration platform with adapters to various other formats. So you can filter your events through and basically get them sent on. If you have another analytics solution that you wanted, you can say, well, I'm only really interested in purchase ones right now, to be quite honest. I can put that into my purchase system of record, for example, and you have that level of filtering that you can, and a set of like rule-based capabilities there that can, help you tune those.
So can the customers themselves do the filtering from the SWRVE console and have those events that get sent over to their AWS accounts? Is that what you meant?
They need a little bit of hand holding at it right now. But yeah, gotcha. That's the whole idea, is to kind of give people the capability. We've got a couple of projects on the go right now to kind of, make all that stuff much more accessible, and quite frankly, so that we don't have to do it. People can control it themselves. That's what we want. We want to have sliders for, data retention requirements, all that kind of good stuff.
Right. Very cool.
Mm-hmm. What you got there, Nick?
Yeah, this is the user database, and I wanted to show this just as a way to kind of visualize the different ways that you can kind of slice and dice the raw event data. Ultimately, what we're doing in the user database, which is kind of an aggregated view of all the customer data, is really just kind of processing all that raw data and making it aggregated and putting it into certain tables. So kind of SWRVE has this way of kind of or has this mindset of kind of sectioning it up into about 7 different tables. Obviously, kind of customers do it in different ways. They have kind of different data mappings. They're using it for different things. But when we're trying to make this accessible to people, normally kind of less data savvy and less technical savvy, they're these kind of areas. So being kind of understanding the SWRVE user properties. And the SWRVE user properties are going to be the stuff that's getting grabbed by the different devices. But then aggregated to a user profile. So you can see here there's also device properties, and what this is doing is it's kind of showing the kind of the pseudo mapping between you existing as a person, as a user, and you existing as a device. So I have many different devices. I talked about my streaming example where I'm logging into the same account, but I'm probably using half a dozen different devices. Okay. Which means I'm streaming data from all these different devices, typically not at the same time, but sometimes at the same time. Depends who's mooching on my account at that point. And kind of bringing that all together. So there's going to be different devices. So from the smart TV that my brother mooches from me on, that has the data that streams in from my mobile device, from my tablet, from my Xbox. All that data is kind of coming in, so they'll have all their own kind of certain device characteristics and device properties you want to capture, because you want to know that someone's engaged on a smart TV, and because typically they're attention mechanisms.
Right.
And depending on the industry you're in, there will be different things, right? So if you are a travel brand and someone has your app, that is a huge retention kind of flag. If someone's engaging with you directly as a brand via an app, rather than via the web, it's a huge flag. It's a good flag that the consumers engage with you. So we have these kind of different levels of properties. We have custom properties as well. So this is the stuff that kind of customers send to us. What's your name? What's your email address? What level are you on? I don't know. What are your preferences? What are your permissions? What kind of privacy policies have you guys signed up for? So making sure that you're included into, let's say, newsletter lists or messaging lists that you've signed up for, or excluding you if you've opted out for communications. So it's all about kind of gathering that custom data. Then you have, again, very similar to the kind of the SWRVE data and the custom data, you have the events that are streamed through from the kind of the default, the SWRVE SDK, which is going to be kind of campaign engagement events. So we saw and I'm just going to flick back quickly, we saw an impression event when the init message was shown. So that will be part of the SWRVE events side. When I click, and I will promise I will click, then we will get a click event as well in some point. So all of that will kind of come under this SWRVE events bucket, and then the custom events bucket is going to be everything to do with the behavior that is specific to your application. So it could be that you've started playing a game, you're fighting someone, you're watching someone. So this is everything that's kind of non-SWRVE name stamped, really, that is pertinent to the kind of the custom behavior that you're tracking about users, and then using to make kind of pertinent and relevant communications too. We then have kind of ways that SWRVE segment up data. So any segments you've generated will show you memberships of users against those segments. And then SWRVE has a unique way of, thanks to kind of our gaming heritage, of streaming in-app purchase data. So when you kind of go through the app stores and make those purchases, SWRVE has a unique way to kind of capturing that purchase intent and then purveying it across the rest of the system. So we have a bunch of pre-built kind of item reports, goal reports, I mean, frankly, a lot of analysis around the monetary side of gaming, because that's a huge part of the business model, is being able to monetize users in different ways, to be able to fund expansions to games. Not all companies are kind of a money thirsty companies. Some people just want to build a really good experience for their customers, and money is a cherry on top. It's a bonus.
Very cool. Very cool. This gets the gears turning in my head about, I don't know, that the device properties one's very interesting to me. I feel like you can tell so much by, whether or not I have an iPhone, an iPad, and a Mac. That kind of gives an indication of my ability to, I guess, the propensity to convert is the term that you use.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is probably not so pertinent now that that kind of high-end smartphones are more accessible, but certainly kind of in the early kind of late 2015s, early 2016s, just when that kind of Apple Samsung kind of fight was like at its highest. You really could kind of bucket users up depending on the device they had. If you had a high-end iPhone, then you were probably from a more kind of affluent area, or were a bit of a kind of an Apple geek, right? A bit of an Apple fanboy. Right. So, people, I mean, it was in the industry a relatively sound methodology to segment people based on their devices.
And also, just irrespective of whether or not we're measuring like propensity to convert, it also from just like a product perspective, to me, helps you understand where I should spend more of my time. If a majority of the device property data illustrates that like everyone's using my iOS app but no one's using my Android app, then I'm hyper focused on iOS and making sure that the iOS app is taken care of, and all of the Android stuff is like second to. So very, very interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean the data side. My background is kind of BI and analytics in the app space. Actually, data should be the thing you start with and iterate through the entire thing, whatever you're doing. To kind of use the analogy we're using of being able to kind of assess the different devices that your customers use is valuable in all areas of your business, right? From kind of generating relevant communications, but also to kind of product development. As you said, if people are using the iPhone app but not the Android app, is there a problem with it? Is it that it loads slowly, or it breaks? Are there bugs? Is there a part that has faulted? Is there part of the experience that isn't kind of optimal for that user? Versely, do I use the app but never purchase? So do I window shop, let's say the Amazon store, but then go and buy everything online via a voucher code website, just to leverage a bit more monetization? So kind of understanding that kind of cross-platform flow, and then being able to actually kind of use the SWRVE dashboard to message people based on it, but also just being able to stream all of that out as like a user interaction kind of data layer is so valuable for people. And I think it's kind of known in industry that and to everyone in all people's businesses that's relevant. But I think making it accessible to all those different teams is one of the most kind of valuable things that you can do as an organization or as an individual, is just make it accessible to all the different functions. Don't just hide it away in kind of data and BI, and then kind of give out little reports. Make that kind of data accessible and actionable to different users as well, to different personas in your team.
Very cool.
All right.
I think probably the last thing I want to show you guys is push working. And I had to give credit to a colleague of mine who got this working very, very late last night.
I was gonna interrupt and tell Ghost Host that the screen share disappeared, but Ghost Host figured it out. Thanks, Sam.
Oh, okay. That's very great. So I'm going to create just a push from scratch, just to show you just how quick this is. And this is kind of all thanks to the WYSIWYG. Again, I'm going to use the acronym. What you see is what you get. So I'm going to create a push. It's going to be a standard push. We have a couple of different types that you can say trigger when they break a geofence, you could trigger from a backend system. You can send a quick push, which is a very easy way to send a very large amount of push notifications in a very short space of time to a predefined audience. So think about kind of breaking news. I want to send it to when Manchester United, they are a football team, a soccer team. When they score a goal, you may want to send a message immediately to 5 million people. So in our backend, we're spooling up a kind of a much larger stack to be able to send all those things with kind of a high throughput.
We follow soccer here. I follow soccer here, by the way. I was rooting for PSG this weekend, but anyway.
I have to keep. We work a lot kind of with people across the world, and actually, I think our American colleagues are probably more into football than the British colleagues. One of the guys from the customer success team has actually moved to Dublin to join the product team. He is probably the largest Liverpool supporter I have ever met ever. I'm not entirely sure he's missed a game at 3 a.m. in a pub in San Francisco. It's it's pretty cool.
Insane. Obsessed. He's obsessed.
Nice.
So kind of continuing on, we can select which platform we want to send this to. I have an iOS device on this demo one, so I'm going to select iOS. But you may want to blast it to all, right? So you may want to say, I want to target everyone with a web push, or just Android, or I don't want to specify which platform that I send it through, and Amazon's going to be part of this also. Who do I want to send it? Who would I want to send this to? And again, as I said before, and as you guys who were kind of later on in the stream, naming conventions for campaign names and descriptions. This is not for you. This is for people that pick this up after you've gone. I'm just going to call this Twitch streaming demo. Actually, that's a pretty good description as well. I'm going to add some tags. So this is just a demo. So I'm going to add a tag to this so we can find this very easily later. But yeah, descriptions and campaign names. When you have hundreds and thousands, once you've been using a platform like this for a while, trying to sift through all of this retrospectively without a good description or naming convention or a good kind of tag or label plan is, I can tell you, very difficult.
This is a lesson that I've learned recently, just even working on like workshops and like technical content that helps people learn about AWS. Like you have to make sure that stuff is like maintainable long term and can outlive even myself. Yeah.
We have at least one customer that has like 800 campaigns going at the same time, and that's kind of brain damage unless you can organize it some way.
Right.
Yeah, 800 live, and I think probably in the tens of thousands of kind of finished and archived. Yeah. So it's trying to retrospectively go back is a tough job for the person who has to do it. So we're going to save, and with SWRVE, you're always going to get these tooltips. So because it's a demo environment, it's not registering push tokens, but that won't matter for the demo. And again, we think of kind of what the component parts of the campaign are. It is the kind of the metadata, it's the overview of the campaign, what channel you're sending it to. Is it a push? Is it an in-app? Is it an A/B test? Is it an email? Is it an SMS? What are the goals of the campaign? What is the content? What's it going to look like? Who's the audience? Who it's going to go to, and why is it going to go to them? And what is the schedule for these things? Is it going to be triggered on a geofence? Is it going to be time-based? Is it going to use some kind of AI, ML, optimal timing mechanism that we have? So really kind of defining all these different component parts is really important. But I just want to show you the cool stuff. So again, this is all WYSIWYG based. So as I type this in, you will see this kind of appear as if by magic on the demo side on the left. So it's going to be, hey, a custom property in here. So I'm going to add, hey, name. Watch out for us on Twitch this evening or now. An emoji. Let's put some eyes in there as well. And again, all of this is kind of rendered in real time. Because this is iOS, there's 3 different types of ways to visualize the push message. There's the lock screen, there's the extended view, and then there's the banner. So you can get a sense of what this is going to look like. I'm going to go extended view because I'm going to add what I found is a hilarious Wallace GIF. If you don't know this is Wallace. This is Wallace from Wallace and Gromit, which is a very, very English. I'm going to call it a TV cartoon, but it's all stop motion. I don't know if this translates across the pond, but I find it funny anyway. So now we have kind of what it looks like, and this is what it's going to look like to a user. Obviously, the username piece will be replaced by their own name.
Username.
Yeah. So on this, what are you going to do with it? Is it just going to open the app? Are you going to deep link? So again, my app. Let's say this is going to take us through to the settings page, or maybe it takes us through to video content with ID, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever this might be. And the idea is to be able to kind of I think probably Amazon coined this with the one-click purchase, is remove friction from the call to action. So the more things a user has to do, the bigger the drop off is going to be. If they have to click through 7 times, and I think the paper, I don't know, Mo or Eric, if you know this, I think it was 14 clicks was the original Amazon search to purchase, right?
I didn't know that. Yeah,
I think it was 14 clicks.
I didn't know that myself.
I may be misquoting, but I'm pretty sure it was originally 14 clicks, and they brought it down to 1. And I think revenue and satisfaction, skyrocketed just pretty much immediately after that. There's a very interesting paper from several years ago. But kind of deep linking people from this notification into the app to the page where you're trying to take them saves them 2 or 3 clicks, like at least. So always do it. Buttons. So I might want to do like take me there. And then again, we're going to add a deep link. So I'm going to use the same one. So it's just going to be I'm going to deep link to a video. Maybe let's add another button. Just missed the notification. Here you can kind of see how it's going to render to a user. And again, all of these properties are based on the data that's coming through from the SDKs, from the devices, and then kind of any back-end integrations we have with CRM system, marketing cloud. So really you can kind of start dynamically personalizing all of the messaging that comes to your users. So think about using things like, hey, Nick, I see you're stuck on level 10. Here, have this 20 gems, this booster, this whatever, to help you through. So this could link directly kind of from that push straight to that level potentially, or to start the game, or could link to an in-app message to be able to kind of gift that item or that whatever that thing might be. So being able to kind of minimize the level of interaction that a consumer or user has to make to really get to the end goal of this. And remember, like the more granular you target, the more relevant this should be. So click-through rates are great, but they're vanity metrics, right? It's conversion. Is this actually valuable to a user? Did they go and do the thing? Did they get past that level 10? Did they make that purchase? Did they get that? Did they use that 20% off on, I don't know, KFC? It's the only restaurant I could think of that is in both countries. I don't know. Chuck E. Cheese, that's very US.
Chick-fil-A, you had to go with Chick-fil-A. That's probably top one.
That one, damn. So all of this is really easy, right? I mean, again, you don't have to hard code any of this. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. This is all very what you see is what you get. So what I'm going to do is send myself a test message. So I'm just going to close the app, and then by magic, I am going to send it. Let's see if it goes. I did. There we go.
Come on, the demo gods,
samples.
Nick.
There it is.
There we go.
And my username was sample for my demo user.
Nice.
And then this is not going to work, but if I click on the button, it will take me back into the app. And if I had a video content page, it would take me right there.
Yeah. Very cool.
All kind of as simple as this. And the premise is that you should be always testing and validating that what you're actually showing and what you're sending to your customers is actually right. The number of times I've seen people, the number of times I've got an email where it says, "Hi, curly brackets, first name," or N_name, comma, L_name, curly brackets. It's kind of marketing 101, right? Is to test these things before they go out.
Yeah. So we just had Rio Joga ask a question about what we're doing today, which I think is a great opportunity to kind of reintroduce the show. We have SWRVE here today. We're learning about marketing automation and all of the super cool things that SWRVE can do to kind of take care of driving people to use your applications, take care of the data that these campaigns generate once you drive people to use your applications, and why you really shouldn't even try to do this on your own. Like, I can't even imagine like trying to condense the hundreds of years of experience that you said went into building this application. It's so cool. And I am already starting to think of the ways that I could use it myself. And I know Eric of us two, Eric is definitely way more entrepreneurial than I am. So I'm sure Eric has a bunch of ideas of how to use SWRVE himself. Yeah.
Yeah, let us know. We're interested.
Totally.
Yeah, so I think that the premise of all of this is, and the premise of using a platform like SWRVE is do what you're good at. We were kind of purpose built to be kind of this software layer for companies so they can focus on their own kind of critical business product. The number of times we see enterprises that try to kind of build a purpose built platform similar to this, but that their entire roadmap, this really kind of only maybe a single digit percentage of their development time, because they're trying to build new user experiences for their e-commerce website or their streaming platform or their gaming team. So do what is build and put your developer and product focus on what your company's there to do, and let softwares like SWRVE kind of fill in that engineering time. It's why kind of SaaS really exists as a business, right?
The term we use here at AWS, and everybody knows, it's the undifferentiated heavy lifting, right?
Absolutely,
yeah. So totally. Cool. Nick, were you done with your demo? Perfect. I think that's a good place to wrap up. I was gonna say, everyone, I'm going to be on the stream on Thursday for a Community Voices episode with some really cool people and Nick Walsh. So you should totally tune in for that. Thursday at what time? Ghost Host, what time is it?
Let me look it up.
Okay. Ghost Host is going to look. Ghost Host is going to look it up.
5:43 CST.
No, not right now. Not right now. What time is the episode on Thursday? So while you look that up, Ghost Host.
Already done. 1 p.m. Pacific.
1 Pacific. All right. 1 Pacific, Thursday. Myself, Nick Walsh, and some special guests. Totally.
Ben Whaley, Andrew Brown.
Ben Whaley and Andrew Brown. Thank you. Yeah. So tune into that on Thursday. Oshin, Nick, we have a tradition of ending the show with a sign-off. This time I remember what the sign-offs are. Usually I forget the sign-offs and we make a whole thing about how the ending of the show is just Mo or AM or whoever forgetting what the sign-offs are. But no, you have 3 options. Giddy up, y'all come back now, or happy trails. So, Oshin, we'll start with you.
Happy trails.
Happy trails from Oshin. Nick, what about you?
Y'all come back.
Y'all come back. So there's a little southern twang you got to add there. It's y'all come back now. You're here. Yeah, you gotta add that. You gotta add that. That y'all come back
Embarrass
now.
myself.
You're here. Don't worry. And then Eric, what do you go with?
I like Happy Trails. I'm a Happy Trails guy.
Happy trails.
I like y'all come back now. So y'all come back now. You're here. Thanks for joining. Swerve, it was wonderful to have you. And Ghost Host,
Thanks, guys.
you can take us out.